Why is everything purple? Did I miss a memo or something? Nobody tells me anything. How's it going, everybody? My name is Jake Ruddle and I'm one of the content creators here at Youtini.com, and today I am bringing you our review for Shadowfall, an Alphabet Squadron novel by Alexander Freed. This is the newest canon novel to be released. It just came out this past June, and it's the second installment in Alexander Freed's Alphabet Squadron trilogy. We have a lot that we're going to cover in this review. We're going to talk about some of the really important things like the plot, the writing style, the originality, the entertainment in the book, and a ton of other things. So if you're trying to decide whether or not this is the book that you want to read next, this is the video for you. First though, I want to make sure that you guys know how you can pick up your copy of Shadowfall as an audiobook, which is probably one of the best ways that you could experience any Star Wars novel, like, ever. Our review itself is brought to you by Audible, where you can check out pretty much every single Star Wars novel, whether it's legends, canons, anything, right from whatever device that you can download an app on, like your phone. You can listen to it on your way to work. You can listen to it on the subway if you want to listen to it while you're at the gym. Personally, I like to listen to my audiobooks when I'm running, well, walking on the treadmill, like maybe walking around the house to the refrigerator. I like snacks, okay? Anyway, you can listen to the book in whatever it is that you do, and the best part about this is the first book from Audible is going to be on us for free. If you head over to Youtini.com/audible, you will get your first audiobook for free. Even if you don't decide to subscribe after your free trial, you will get to keep your audiobook so you can listen to it whenever you want, however you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed though. I was never really an audiobook person, and once I started listening to Star Wars books on audio, I think my collection's up to about like 20 books right now, and it's nice to be able to go back to them and listen to them whenever you want, so I don't think you're going to be disappointed. So go check it out, www.youtini.com/audible. It'll have all the information that you need, and not only are you supporting businesses like Audible, you're also supporting us here at Youtini so that we can continue to make cool videos for you like this. So let's talk about Shadowfall. Shadowfall is the second installment in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which takes place shortly after the events of Endor in the movie The Return of the Jedi. Officially, we're sitting in about 8 ABY, for those of you who are timeline people and you want to follow along with where things are hitting the timeline. It's really nice because we are getting more and more of these books now that are filling in this gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, which we know, for the timeline people, it's about a 35-year gap. So there's a lot of stories to tell, and this is a good addition to it. Some quick info about the book itself for those of you who are looking for those details. The book goes for the typical Del Rey hardcover price of $28.99. There is a link to the book in the links below where you can pick it up on Amazon through our Youtini affiliate link if you haven't already picked it up. The book itself sits at 393 pages long, which some of you guys may be thinking that's a little lengthy for a novel, especially since some of these Star Wars novels you can knock out in a day or two, but that just means that we've got more story to work with, which is, you know, I'm never going to turn that away. The publishers have done a great job in recent years of giving us these really kind of colorful, popping covers. They pop out on our bookshelves, which I love stuff like that. I like anyone being able to walk in and saying like, oh, let me look at your book collection, and I'll be like, got quite a collection of other things too. Besides just, you know, the cover being purple, which I don't know what it is about. I love purple though. Purple's a really good color. No offense to any of the purple lovers. Purple's a color of royalty. But I guess they have decided that Alphabet Squadron is going to be purple. You got Chasna Chaddock on the cover, which one of the awesome new characters that's kind of been thrown into the Star Wars canon itself. That's what's kind of really been great about the Alphabet Squadron novel as a whole, is that we get some of these characters that we're used to seeing throughout other stories like Hera Syndulla. We're also getting some brand new characters that you can display on your bookshelf just like that. As far as the story itself goes, it's a middle chapter, and we know that middle chapters can be hit or miss as far as keeping the viewers or readers, or however you want to describe it, invested in the story. As readers, we kind of know that the second act in a 3-act story arc is where we're going to see our characters at the lowest, or where our main characters are going to be going through their biggest struggle. And we have that here, and we see that in other Star Wars novels. I mean, everybody loves Empire Strikes Back. And then, you know, you have The Last Jedi. And, you know, they're, you know, Attack of the Clones too. But everybody loves Empire Strikes Back. But either way, it's pretty traditional storytelling to have that second act kind of follow typical guidelines. The best part about that, though, is that it's setting us up for a really awesome third act, which is going to come out next year. For this review, though, I want you guys to be thinking about positive middle chapters. We like this as a middle chapter. After talking to the whole gang at Youtini, the book review team and stuff like that, everyone has pretty much decided that this is a good middle chapter. We're really excited for the third book. It really picks things up after the first book. We're good with this one. So let's talk about the plot. Anybody who knows Alexander Freed knows that he's really great at writing these really technical, tactical battle scenes in stories. Before he took on the Alphabet Squadron, Freed was mainly known in the Star Wars Expanded Universe as being the author of Star Wars Battlefront Twilight Company, which was one of the tie-in novels for the Star Wars Battlefront video game. He was also the author for the Rogue One novelization, which is a really great pickup as well. But now that he's hitting his stride with the Alphabet Squadron, Alexander Freed is really giving us his best work, or he's doing what he's best at, just depending on how you look at it. We have a ton of really awesome action scenes that are giving us perspective inside the cockpit, outside the cockpit. Not only are we getting the rundown of everything that's going on in the battle, we also get that view into the characters' heads, which is really important to just this storyline as a whole, and looking at the costs of war and kind of understanding how this war is affecting the characters. He does a really great job of that. The book itself begins not too far from the ending of the first book in the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, just Alphabet Squadron. The characters themselves and Hera Syndulla's battle group, they're finding themselves in a time of relative peace after the craziness that was, I mean, you can maybe even call it devastation, that was Panem Nai, which is the way that the first book ended. Other kind of details with the plot line. Location, we're dealing solely with the Cerberon system. So we don't have that typical Star Wars story where we're bouncing between all these different planets and stuff like that, which I know that's a typical Star Wars cornerstone storytelling mark. I think George Lucas himself is the one who said it, that each story should add new characters, new species, new locations to show how big the universe is. But we're in the Cerberon system here, and that's not really meant to be a detractor. It works that it's the Cerberon system. I think if anything, it kind of shows us as the readers that, you know, sometimes we forget that these systems have many different planets, have many different worlds all within one system. So we don't necessarily need to jump to light speed every 5 minutes to be able to go to a different planet. If you remember in The Empire Strikes Back, we want to call Hoth Hoth, but it's actually the 6th planet of the Hoth system. Admiral Piet says that when he's talking to Darth Vader, and he's saying, "Oh my lord, probe droids are found in the 6th planet of the Hoth system." So it kind of makes you think, because it's one of those little details that reminds you, you know, while we're going from planet to planet, we're still in the same system. Another huge piece of the plot itself, and this is really going to lead us into our next section where we talk about characters, but it's the fact that we get so much psychological makeup of these characters in the story. If you've read the first Alphabet Squadron book, you know that a huge chunk of the plot is, there's dialogue, but we get a lot of perspective of what's going on in the characters' minds, what they're thinking, kind of those internal monologues where they're asking themselves questions and kind of working through a situation. That's a huge piece of the plot, and that adds to the plot. And like I said before, while some of these things may seem like atypical for Star Wars books, that's what makes the Alphabet Squadron trilogy the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. In short, what we're getting here is a really great character novel and a really great action novel as well. On a scale of 1 to 10, we give Shadowfall an 8.1. Now, we kind of ended the plot section talking about characters, and that's going to move us on to our next section of the review, which is the section about characters. In addition to having the whole gang return, we have Quell, Will, Nath, Chas, Kairos, we even have Hera, we have Karen Aiden again, we have ITO. The whole gang's back. So, you know, that we can establish pretty early. The big cliffhanger that we kind of got at the end of the first Alphabet Squadron novel, though, was the reveal that this mysterious character named Devon was actually Major Soren Keyes, who was Quell's mentor while she was in the Empire. He plays a major role in this story as well. We know from Alphabet Squadron that we do lose grandmother, Colonel Nares, the grandmother of Shadow Wing for all those years that made Shadow Wing what it was. So it kind of goes without saying that Major Keyes is going to fill that role of the Shadow Wing leadership that we no longer have. He's going to be a character to watch. Jumping back to our New Republic characters though, things are a little bit different, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. We do still follow our main 5 that are Alphabet Squadron pretty closely in this story, but as the story goes on and progresses, we see that while they're still a very tight squadron, they are beginning to ask themselves these different questions like, you know, what might happen to me after this war is over? What am I going to do when there is no more Alphabet Squadron? So the toll of war is really beginning to hit them. The way this kind of corresponds with the storytelling is, I said before, they're still a tight squadron, but they are beginning to break out a little bit, and we may see how some of these characters separate from each other, but still move the story forward. Don't freak out if you are worried about this, because, I mean, that was one of the big pieces of the first Alphabet Squadron novel, is that we got to see all of them interacting with each other. But it's not uncommon for stories to kind of break out your main characters and have them maybe have some side stories on their own where they've got to discover something about themselves or something about their world. It happened in The Empire Strikes Back. Luke left our heroes to go to Dagobah to train with Yoda. Oh my god. With Yoga. I meant Yoda. Like some other things we've talked about, this isn't really a new concept. If you remember, in The Empire Strikes Back, Luke leaves our heroes to go train with Yoda on Dagobah. In The Last Jedi, Rey leaves our heroes to go train with Luke on Ahch-To. So we can still get a lot of characterization, and we can still see what these characters mean to each other even when they're not having these face-to-face interactions. With that being said, Quell is obviously still at the forefront of the novel. You know that we have Chas on the cover, but the book review team, the whole gang at Utini, after kind of talking about it, we all have pretty much decided that this isn't an Empire story, but Major Soren Keyes is the breakout character of Shadowfall. He gives us a much different perspective than Colonel Nares had on the future of the Empire and where things may end up and how they need to take their approach. Personally, I like that kind of stuff because I think we all know that, you know, the fall of a galactic empire is not just going to happen like that. It's going to take many different years, and there's going to be many different perspectives on what's going to happen after something like the events of Return of the Jedi. And the more that we get with these people on the inside kind of thinking about that, the happier I'm going to be. Now, character-wise, none of this is supposed to make you wary. None of this is supposed to make you say, oh my god, I'm not going to get the same character situation that I got in the first novel, and that's why I loved it. Take a breath, because remember, we still have a third book to come in and wrap everything up next year. Ratings for the characters, 9.3. So let's move on to originality now. We've already kind of talked about how Alexander Freed is really good at the tactical stuff and the technical writing that gives us a lot of perspective into the battle. So the story itself has a lot of originality just because of that. You can actually step into Alexander Freed's mindset whenever he was writing this story by checking out the Living Force podcast interview that we did with him a couple weeks ago. We did throw a link for that interview down below. Some of you all may have already listened to it, but it's going to be a great piece to supplement this review as far as getting some perspective from the author himself. There are some other things though that Freed adds to the story to kind of give some originality. One of the obvious ones is going to be the use of characters like droids. One of the best parts of the storytelling that adds to the originality as a whole is just the use of droids in storytelling. And this isn't really a new concept. I think all of us know that droids have played a role in Star Wars since the first movie came out in 1977, but we're used to seeing protocol droids or astromechs and things like that. Freed gives us ITO, everybody's favorite torture droid turned therapist and Karen Aiden's sidekick, who, you know, whenever you saw that droid kind of floating into Leia's cell block in A New Hope, nobody ever really thought that something like that would become a main character in a trilogy one day. But he did, and he's been an awesome addition to the story as a whole. Taking some of those smaller things like that into account, these stories are very original, and so we're going to go ahead and give it an 8.8 for originality. Let's move on to the writing style. The battle sequences in the story speak for themselves. We have talked about that. But when talking to the Shadowfall book review team themselves, everybody pretty much came to the conclusion that this book is a fine whiskey. It is not meant to be pounded down. It's meant to be sipped and savored and enjoyed, and you're not going to drink it all right away. I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. Getting into the characters' heads, understanding the dynamics of the battles that are going on, you're gonna have to slow yourself down for stuff like that. I'm a pretty fast reader, so I have those issues. I want to jump through the story pretty quickly, and I can pick up on the fact that, you know, we've got 50 pages here that's basically telling me that we won the battle. But you're gonna miss out on so much if you speed through it. You're gonna miss out on what makes this story great, which is all of these details. And Freed does a really great job of not just sticking us onto a bridge and having us watch the whole battle through the view screens of a Star Destroyer or Home 1. This may work with something like the new Thrawn trilogy, where we want to be on the bridge and we want to be following Grand Admiral Thrawn's thought process as he's watching the battle go from afar. But Freed's writing style will put us into the cockpit and then maybe move us over to the bridge and then maybe kind of give us a wide view of the battle as a whole and then jump into the cockpit of another character. And moving around from character to character may seem a little difficult, it may seem a little disjointed, but this story is what it is because we make those moves and because we see so many different characters' perspectives. Now, if you've read the first book, you know that this is going to make for some longer chapters, and some of the chapters, pretty much all of the chapters, have like sub-chapters within them, sometimes 6 or 7 of those. But the disjointedness doesn't really affect the book in a negative way because Freed's writing style as a whole is just really good at that. With the writing style, we're going to give this a rating of 8.6. We all love to be entertained, right? So let's talk about the entertainment factor of Shadowfall. Alphabet Squadron, the first book in the trilogy, does a really great job of kind of balancing those intimate fireside chats with the really intense battle scenes. We get to see a lot of character in a very short amount of time, and then we get to see those characters in very different situations. We see the vulnerable side, we see the intense side, we see the scared side, the happy side, we see all of that in a really short amount of time. Shadowfall continues this balance. As far as the entertainment goes, we just get a good balance of everything. And this makes for really good entertainment because things slow down when we're ready for a slowdown, but then they speed up when we're ready for things to get back into action. We see what's going on in the characters' heads. We've kind of touched on a lot of these different things, and that's kind of what's great about these reviews is because we can see very early on that the plot added to the characters, added to the writing style, is giving us this really awesome entertainment factor. I think it goes without saying that this trilogy is just as much of a character study on the effects of war as it is trying to be one of these plot-focused, character-focused story that move on this grand saga that we know as Star Wars. I think anytime that you have a major battle sequence, you're going to be entertained just because we like this kind of stuff. But what's really awesome about this is that the characters themselves are entertaining as well. So that entertainment rating on a scale of 1 to 10, 8.8. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but we can't do a book review without talking to you about the audiobook. The production value of any Star Wars novel is going to be top notch. I mean, you've got the John Williams music, you've got sound effects, the droids actually sound like droids, astromechs are going to beep at you. If you get your mind right whenever you put your headphones in or your earpods or AirPods or whatever they're called these days, you are going to get a 15-hour movie in your head. They did switch things up from the first novel, which was narrated by Saskia Marleveld. She did a really great job. She told the story very well. But now we have Carol Monda narrating Shadowfall. Monda is a renowned narrator. She has narrated over 400 audiobooks. You're probably going to recognize her as the voice of Lene Castana in the audio drama Dooku Jedi Lost. She does a really great job. We get an awesome ride with Shadowfall, and you're not going to be disappointed. To wrap up the review, we're really getting something special here with Alexander Freed's second installment into this trilogy. For fans of the Star Wars universe, we obviously love the movies, but especially with the expanded universe, we're also readers. And anytime that we can add stories, anytime that we can see these archetypes from stories across generations thrown into this backdrop of a galaxy far, far away, it's going to be a great addition. For anyone who's read Star Wars books over the years, you know that these stories kind of toggle the line between being a plot-focused story or a character-focused story. And a lot of these books and comics and all that kind of stuff that has filled in this gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens have been really good at being a little bit of both. Throw in some of these other stories like the Mandalorian TV series, the Aftermath trilogy, and we're really hitting our stride with Star Wars stories in this time frame. Overall, our verdict for Shadowfall is that this is a very good novel. We give it an overall rating of 8.7. So we look forward to the conclusion of Alexander Freed's trilogy whenever the third book comes out next year, and until then we're going to keep reading the first book and the second book and rereading it over and over again because it's just that good of a ride. I mentioned it before, but you can check out our exclusive interview with Alexander Freed on the Living Force podcast. The link for that is below. If you've already listened to it once, how about you go listen to it again now that you've watched this review video. Also, if you go to the official book profile on Youtini.com, you can see all the staff comments, the user reviews, things like that. We also have the affiliate link up on the site, so you can go pick up your copy of Shadowfall on Amazon if you haven't bought it already. You go ahead and click buy it now. It'll probably be in your mailbox faster than you can say Amazon Prime. Thanks again for checking out our Shadowfall review, everybody. My name is Jake Ruddle. You can get in touch with me on social media or through any of our Youtini social outlets. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and until then, the Force will be with you always.